Hey, Dr. Anica here, and welcome to our new episode of What You Readin'? This is the show where we talk about books that inspire, equip, and engage us around the topic of race and race relations. And today, we are going to be talking about the book The Queen of Palmyra by Minrose Gwin. This is a fictional story that is set in 1963 Mississippi, the heart of Jim Crow South, and it follows an 11-year-old white girl named Florence who spends most of her days in the company of her grandparents' black maid, Zini. Zini is actually named after Zenobia, the Queen of Palmyra. And in the story, it's interesting because unlike other stories on race, we get to see it through the eyes of a child unfamiliar with the history and the consequences of racism and racial prejudice. As a reader, we are able to understand and see how hateful imagery and practices are actually normalized for Florence, but we also see her come into awareness of that through the relationships that she makes and the experiences that she has. As always, I've got 3 points that I want to leave with you. Point number 1, no words needed. Racism, prejudice, and bias are things that are powerful, and they can be communicated without ever having to say a single word. The norms that have been established in Florence's world, whether it's the black side of town versus the white side of town, or even the expectation that blacks should know and stay in their lowly places in society, all of these things really send a very powerful and strong message. One could argue that young Florence probably could never define what racism is, but everything around her is set up to teach her how to be a racist. This really challenges us as readers, I think, because it makes us give consideration to the places and the spaces that we inhabit, and give thought to the verbal and the nonverbal messages that those places communicate, and whether those messages are in line with the values we profess to hold. Point number 2, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. They're key figures in Florence's life who she experiences as loving and caring, but others experience them as anything but. And seeing Florence having to work through that tension of reconciling her love for these people with her increased awareness of their sins is a really humanizing part of the story. I think there's a time in all of our lives when we have to come to terms with the problematic views and practices of the ones that we love most. Whether it's confronting your grandma over her belief that every black male is a criminal up to no good, or your favorite uncle who swears that the only reason his Latino boss got that promotion was because of affirmative action. Whatever the cause, we're all left having to sort of confront and deal with these very hard truths. The Queen of Palmyra shows us that while it's uncomfortable and definitely not desired, confronting these things is inevitable and needs to happen. Point number 3, never too late to change. This is by far my favorite point, because as Florence grows and matures and really comes to understand the world that she grew up in, we see her make choices that form and inform the woman that she becomes. And I love this. I love it because it says it doesn't matter what your background is or how long you've held on to certain problematic views. As long as you're willing to change it, you're not beyond hope. That redemption and hope is there for everyone, and it's never too late, not for you, not for me, and certainly not for Florence. So there you have it, my 3 points on the book of The Queen of Palmyra. I think it's a fantastic read. It really is a beautiful and unique story that talks about race, but from a different angle, and one that's not easily forgettable. So I encourage you, go get this book, read it, and let me know what you think. I'd love to hear it. As always, this is Dr. Anica from Race Positive, and I'll see you next time. Bye. If there's a book you think I should read, let me know. Comment below.